This is Corinne Bloom, and you're listening to Raw Conversations. I've had major technical issues this morning with my software, and I just had a moment. I'm having to record it on a totally different software, so let's hope that this works. But I'm chuckling at myself actually, because the topic of today is your spiritual path is your life. Your life is your spiritual path. And so why I'm laughing is like, I've spent the last half hour trying to get my microphone to work, or for the sound isn't working. On every other app it's working, but not on, the one that I'm meant to record my podcast on. And it's testing me. And I got really frustrated. And it's like, oh, right, yes, this is the spiritual path. Good cosmic humor. God definitely has quite a sense of humor. So, okay, I'm just like leaning into that of like, okay, this is a really good example of what I want to talk about today. Because what I have noticed is that there's this kind of propensity that humans have for, especially when it comes to spirituality or growth, that it's like you need to go out somewhere to attain that knowledge in this very specific environment with this special teacher or guru or plant medicine or this and that and the other. And it's not to say that those things aren't really useful, helpful. They can work as a guide. They can work as a tool. But when there is this, well, that's the place that I can spiritually grow. And this is very much kind of the old paradigm and the age of Pisces, which we're no longer in, which was, you follow the organization, you follow the teacher, the guru, the church, the priest, the whatever it is. It's something that's outside of you and hierarchically above you, right? And now as we're coming into this age of Aquarius and into the remembrance of who we truly are and into our sovereignty and into our authenticity, I would like to say, there is this remembering that, oh, I am the channel. I have access. And actually it is through my human experience that I grow spiritually, because we're not, I'm sure you've heard this saying before, we're not a human body that has a soul. We're a soul that has a human body. The soul is taking a ride in the car. I've used this analogy before. We are not the car, right? We are the driver in the car. The car is the human that is giving our soul a medium, a vehicle, a vessel through which we get to have this human experience on this planet, in this realm, for our soul to grow, right? And so what a better school and classroom and lesson than being human. Like, oh, what is it like to be human with all of these emotions and sensations and triggers and wounds and sensitivities and opinions and thoughts and all of these various things that make us human? And I've used this analogy as well. It's like, why would we be designed in such a way to have all of these things only to bypass them or circumvent them or, transcend and get over them? Like, I think it's a tricky subject, the topic, the conversation of ego, because a lot of people will really vilify the ego. And yes, do we need to remember that we are not just the ego, that we're not truly the ego? Yes. Do we need to somehow be able to expand beyond that? Yes. But to vilify it and to try to get rid of it would be, to me, it doesn't make sense, because it's like, why would we have an ego? Why would we have emotions? Why would we have certain elements of our human design if they weren't there for a reason and a purpose? So the analogy I've often used is like, you don't buy a washing machine and have a bunch of different buttons on it, but they say, no, you can't use any of these buttons. I mean, my response would be like, then why put them there? Right? Why have them on there if you're not meant to use them? If they're on there, there's a use, there's a purpose, there's a reason. I think it's very easy, especially now in this like kind of oversaturated new age movement, where there's a million and one things that you can do. And again, I want to really say, I'm not putting any of these things down. But when there's a dependency or when there's an escapism, so I'm going to give an example. I see what I've observed with people, whether like, friends or clients or whatever, just somehow it comes into my sphere. Sometimes you will see people that they're going to one workshop after another, one retreat after another, one ayahuasca ceremony after another. And it's like they're seeking for something, but it's like never enough. It's never enough, right? They're never spiritual enough or enlightened enough or knowing enough. There's something that they continue to chase. And, you could say a part of that is like the lack of integration, but there is this idea that it has to happen outside. It has to happen through some kind of mediumship, right? You also see the people that, and I don't mean to say this judgmentally, I'm just trying to paint a picture of what we can unconsciously lean into, that I'm trying to pull us back into maybe a simpler, more direct path, perhaps, knowing that there's no one right path. But you'll see people that think that their spiritual journey means that they have to go to, all of these spiritual workshops or ashrams or whatever, and they're neglecting their life. They're neglecting sometimes their children, their marriage, their friends, because the thing that's out there is what's going to spiritually make them grow. And maybe it's true. Maybe they need to, get away from everything and do that. But when it's always that, like that is the spiritual thing, and then this is distracting me from the spiritual thing, that to me is where I go, really? Because I love the saying, the obstacle is the way, right? It's not to avoid the obstacle. It's like all of these sayings, the only way out is through, right? For me, I when I began to work as a coach, the first thing that I worked with a lot with people was fear. And my first workshop on fear was embracing your fear. That it's not about transcending your fear. It's not even about it's certainly not getting rid of your fear. It's not even about transmuting or alchemizing your fear. That happens as a byproduct of embracing your fear. That anything held in the lap of love naturally transmutes it, because all that fear is the absence of love. Similarly, people will say that evil or sin is the absence of love. It's the absence of light. It's the absence of source, God, consciousness. It is that, but the absence means it's forgotten that it is that, right? It is forgotten that it is love. It is forgotten that it is light. It is forgotten that it is source consciousness, right? We never lose it. We just simply forget. So I think that it's very easy to think, especially with our modern day lives that are busy and chaotic and lots and lots of distraction. There's so much distraction with social media, news, and, I was listening to, I think it was Lori Ladd just saying, like, it can get too much, just too much. You're absorbing everyone else's thoughts and opinions, and everyone is caught arguing. And that's another thing that I want to throw in. It's like I watch people, I observe people online on Facebook that are going at each other. Like, oh my God, in America, especially right now, I get it. I get that the political scene is tense. I get it. But it's like they're just gnawing into each other, and all I see them do is argue. They love a good fight, and at the end it'll be like, namaste. And it's just like, it kind of irks me, because it's like, if I go off to my meditation class, if I go do that retreat, if I go chant Om Mani Padme Hum, if I go do my yoga, and I say namaste at the end when I eat into someone, I'm a spiritual person. No. Being a spiritual person is just being the essence of who you are, the soul of who you are. And it means that you bring that into anything and everything that you do. So if you're online arguing and being an asshole, but you're then going and doing a yoga class and saying, I'm a spiritual person, namaste, for me, that's entirely missing the point. And again, I'm not meaning to be judgmental, but I want to call a spade a spade. It's very easy for humans to put on masks and facades and identities. Oh, I'm a spiritual person because I do yoga, and I'm a vegan, and I chant, and I do this and that and the other. But if you're online or in person treating your fellow human, brothers and sisters like shit, that to me isn't spiritual, because spiritual is just love. It's just compassion and kindness, right? And it's okay to have differing opinions and different views. And, I also really want to have empathy for the fact that people are very manipulated and brainwashed into this kind of divisive, divided, argumentative, the division. It is just the way that the systems have made it, right? And so people fall into the trap. And I genuinely believe that people, for the most part, are well-intentioned and have good hearts, but they can get very, righteous, or have this kind of like, well, but I'm right and you're wrong, and I'm fighting the good fight and you're not, but each is thinking that they're fighting the good fight and not recognizing that they're caught in the trap of just fighting. And it doesn't matter, because the whole point, it doesn't matter which side, is what I was going to say, because the whole point is actually you need to get out of that game. You're in a trap. You're in a trap that has very purposely been laid there. So, but let me zoom back into what I really wanted to talk about, because I don't want to get into a political thing. I'm just using that as an example. You're going to be tested in life, most especially by people. And if you want to walk the spiritual path, that is the path, because it's the thing that's going to test you the most. If you're a parent, you know that your child will be the biggest spiritual teacher and quote unquote guru. I don't like that term at all, but I'm going to use it as an example, that you'll ever have. They will teach you the most, because they will bring up your shadow. They will trigger you in your moments of just exhaustion and exasperation, or whatever's going on. They will reflect back. They'll also remind you of like, hey, don't take it so serious. They'll laugh at things. They'll show you compassion and empathy, because the children that are coming in now, like, wow, like my daughter is just, I mean, she's still a human being, but like I sometimes look at her and I'm like, God, you're an angel. Like, you're really an angel, So we are the spiritual path. Our lives are the spiritual path. Like, if you want to go off and do a retreat, or if you want to do a course, or if you, whatever it is, like, these are all wonderful tools. Like I said, tools, but not at the expense of, that is when I'm spiritual. And when I come back into my regular life, this is not being spiritual. Because meditation isn't about sitting on the cushion for an hour and having no thought. That's not what it is anyway. But again, just as an example of how we perceive it, or how we measure ourselves by, like, whether we're succeeding or failing. Meditation on the cushion is so that when you're in your life and you're being triggered, you can face it with presence. You can be grounded. You can take self-responsibility. You can be emotionally intelligent. You can be even compassionate and empathic and understanding, and zoom out beyond just your reactivity, and you can choose to respond. So meditation on the cushion is building consciousness. It's building awareness, so that in our life, when things happen, which they inevitably always do every single day, we can be with it with more of an open heart, with more love, with more compassion, with more kindness, with more patience, with more forgiveness, with more lightness, with more humor, right? And I'm a student of that. I put my hand up. I am a student of that every day, right? So, if all of these people were talking about raising the frequency, like, do all of the things that support you in doing that, great. But the test really comes out in, how are you every day? I remember when I lived in California, I used to go to Spirit Rock to listen to Jack Kornfield. And, you'd see people there, and everybody was very, meditative and centered and nice and smiling and quiet, and even in the store and all of these things, and oh, mani padme hum, blah, 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 whatever. And then you see that same person in the parking lot of Whole Foods just being like an absolute dick, like trying to get your parking spot, nudging in and like, blah. And it's like, I get it. We're human, and our society definitely has a way of really triggering us. It's not natural, right? This to me is like we're going really against the grain. And so things stress us out, it does. Our nervous system is, God, where I live, except for Sunday, bar Sunday, there's construction noise every single day for most of the entire day. And my nervous system is strung out. And so if I don't find ways to ground, which for me is nature, I will probably be more likely to lose my shit at a driver, because I'm already exasperated. And I think living in a society right now where we are so bombarded and overstimulated, not even just with like social media, which is, like I said earlier, it's too much. It's just too much. But also if we want to talk about dimensional fields, the shift, some people hate these terms, but I'm using them just because they're being used. But the dimensional shift from third to fourth is a dimension of the mind. It's the dimension of thoughts. And if you haven't noticed already, it's like there's way too much information. And it's very hard to decipher and discern sometimes what's real, what's not real. People are leaning towards like, well, that's fake. Everything is fake. AI, false news, fake news, whatever. There's... And everything is so externalized, and it's so loud, and it's busy, and that's coming from Instagram and Facebook, and I don't know, I don't even use these, like Twitter and TikTok, and it's coming from the news. If you're watching the news, whoa, I pray for you. And then people in your life and then you add to that like traffic and your routine and the noises like construction and just everything that you have on your to-do list to do. And in a time now where actually we're being refined energetically, we are being sensitized energetically, our nervous system is going to be hypersensitive, and it's all going to feel like too much very quickly. And so it really is a time to just come into greater stillness, create those moments of stillness and quiet so that you can tune in and listen to yourself. And to learn discernment is to learn what feels true for me, what feels authentic, what feels like it's coming from a place of love. Is this inciting fear in me? Is it invoking fear and anger and hatred? Or is it invoking love and compassion and kindness? To me, that's a very strong barometer of what feels true and what feels false, what feels pure and what feels like an illusion. Anything that induces fear is false. It's false. True leadership leads through love, right? Because that's our true essence. So coming back to the theme and the topic that, like even this morning, this freaking thing with the microphone. And I don't even know if this is going to work, to be honest. I don't know if this is going to upload because I'm doing it in a totally different app. But I was like, I laughed. It's like, okay, that's an example of it, right? So I could be in India at an ashram reading Sanskrit, thinking I'm like becoming super spiritually like awakened and enlightened. And if I come back and the freaking microphone pisses me off, then I'd be like, did I integrate that? And I think part of it is I believe that as we go into our humanity and we recognize we don't need to be perfect, being spiritual doesn't mean that, we don't have feelings and emotions and triggers and reactions and all of these things. Remember that the human experience is the vehicle, it's the medium, it is the classroom for the soul to really be able to, expand and grow, right? It's the point. So I believe that the more we go into that and we embrace it, I embrace the fact that earlier I was getting frustrated with this and I caught myself going into a story, of like, oh, all I'm trying to do is be of service and why the hell is this happening to me? It's just like, It's like, okay, can I just forgive my little human self or my big human self? It's just like, can I love that too? And that is the spiritual path, because when we can recognize something, especially that we don't like, and we go, can I love that too? Like it softens your being. You get to exhale, your heart opens rather than like shutting down and closing in and hardening and armor and defensiveness. And, that's what we're seeing a lot out in the world. And actually this transformation, this transition, this awakening, this remembrance is open your heart, open your heart, open your heart. Remember who you are, and you will remember it by landing in your heart. And your heart isn't something that's weak and vulnerable. It's extraordinarily powerful and strong. And I'm a big believer that when your heart is open is when you're at your strongest. When it's closed in and you're in defense and you're guarding, you're susceptible. And here's the thing. It's not even that you're just keeping out what you actually want, which is connection and love. You think you're protecting, but you're actually defending. But it's that you're resisting your human experience. And it's the resistance that causes suffering. I'm noticing right now, like I heard in my meditation this morning, so like I shared, I really want to move. It's been like over a year actually, of not having a home. It's not coming in. There's other things that I'd really like to manifest into my life, not coming in. And actually, it almost sometimes feels like it's getting worse, because like the construction sound is unrelenting. And I really heard very clearly in my meditation, in my being with this morning, that it's like, stop resisting it. And I know the times that, I come in and out of it. I know the times where I let go. I let go of it. So for instance, the rubbish truck comes every single morning, even Sundays at 7:30 in the morning. It's really loud. And it grates on my nervous system. And the moments where I can just go, okay, I'm going to shift that. I'm going to shift the frequency a little bit instead of going into like, and it does hurt my nervous system. I'm not going to lie. Like, it's like, it hurts. But when I can go, instead of being like, God, why, I'm in this noise and every single day and it's tiring me out and I'm exhausted and like, why is the world like this? And I'm not a part of society. Like, instead of going into all of that, if I have enough presence, I will say, thank you, rubbishman, for collecting the rubbish every single day, even Sunday, really early in the morning, so that our neighborhood is clean and it doesn't stink and there aren't cockroaches everywhere. Like, thank you for doing that service for us all. And even though the noise is still there, and yes, it's annoying, it does change the energy. It does change the frequency of it, because all of a sudden I've moved into gratitude. Again, that is a spiritual path. That is a spiritual teaching. You don't need to go to an ashram for that. You don't need to go, all of those things, wonderful, but you don't need to do that in order to become more spiritual. Everything that is happening in your life is here, you get to learn through this too. And it's not about reaching any kind of perfection where you're just like walking around on floating on a cloud, like levitating and being like, I am just made of peace and exuding peace all the time. You're still human. But the way that we level up and the way that we raise our frequency is that we use everything to come back into a place of heart, love, compassion, gratitude, appreciation. Frequency is and dimensions and this ascension, we're not going anywhere. It's all here. It's all here. And if you listen to people that channel, if you listen actually to the telepathy tapes, which I just finished season 1, and I so recommend it. I think it's beautiful. They will say, because one of the people passed, and of course they can still communicate. The others can still communicate to him. And he was like, oh, he's still right here. He's just in a different dimension. But he's right here. And he's creating this whole life. And it's right here. But we just can't see it. And we can't hear it. And we can't feel it, because the different dimensions are different frequencies. So, you know what is a good example? How dogs can hear sounds that we cannot. They can hear a high-pitched sound that we cannot. And even for some of us, like I've got like canine hearing and smell. And I have to say, someone is really, really annoying. And so sometimes I'll hear something and I'll say to somebody that I'm with, like, can you hear that? And they're like, no. I'm like, how can you not hear that? It's like, whatever, whatever the sound is. Sometimes I can hear electricity. So it's a tuning, it's a sensitivity, and it's attuning to, it's like a pitchfork that attunes us into that frequency. And so the ascension is just essentially attuning ourselves to a different frequency, a different tone, a different note. And then once we reach that, then everything that is in that frequency band, we see, we hear, we know, we recognize. So, but the thing is in order to do that, we can't be resisting where we currently are, because it's not about bypassing. It's not about getting rid of. We create more tension if we're in resistance, and we slow ourselves down. That's why when I'm working with people around, like, feeling their emotions, a lot of people think that they're feeling, I'm always in pain. But it's because they think they're dealing with the emotion, but they're just in the experience of pain because they keep on replaying the story again and again and again. And they're like, well, I'm processing the emotion because I'm always feeling pain. And I'm like, no, you're feeling the pain of your story. But if you actually go into the feeling, into the emotion, into the sensation of the emotion in your body, it actually won't last that long, because the moment you go into it and you actually feel it, it exhales and relaxes and turns into something else. It can move. It's no longer stagnant and just this like pain. The pain can then, once it's felt, can go into some other emotion. And then that emotion goes into another emotion. And it's like this unfolding and peeling back. That's why they call it the peeling back of the onion, right? So the only way out is through. It's via embracing our human experience that we can then, whatever you want to call it. Sometimes I'm slightly nervous to say like rise up to the next level, because it seems very kind of hierarchical, or, you're not in the club yet, and so you're not good enough. It's more just like I see it as kind of maybe concentric circles, or, it's not linear. It's not a linear process. Maybe it's an expansion, but it's not to say what was here is worse than what's here. Sorry if you're not seeing the video. I'm doing like the kind of inside a fist, and then a larger expanded circle. They're all part of it. They're all part of it. And recognizing that it all comes from the same source, But I guess the word that I like to use right now is that we're refining. We're coming out of density, and the density has been a good experience for us, but it's also kind of, we're limited, and now we're kind of growing beyond it, right? Like we can take the training wheels off, but it's certainly been ground for amazing training, right? But now really the invitation is to come back into heart, and to come back into love. And you are going to have so many opportunities in your daily life to practice that. Copious amounts. And it's hard, because the things that are going to teach us the most are the things that trigger us the most. And it's very humbling. It's very humbling to go like, ooh, okay, in this scenario, I can be very spiritual and I can be very grounded, and, but in this situation, I really lose my shit. It's like, okay, so how do I let that situation be my teacher right now? Still go do all of the things that bring you joy, that bring you into a place where you feel like you're learning, you're experiencing, you're getting to know yourself. And there are things that literally, yes, they do help you to raise your vibration or your frequency, or bring you into a place of peace. There's nothing wrong with those things. Nothing. None of the things that I mentioned, there's nothing wrong with them. The blind spot is just if you're escaping your life for that and thinking that's where you're spiritual and your normal life is not. The point that I'm trying to make, and I know I'm repeating myself again, is your life is the spiritual path. Your human experience is the spiritual path. Your family is your spiritual path. Your, bastard boss is the path. Like whatever. It's all the path. And all of it is like, how do we choose to respond to it? How do we choose to show up in the face of it? That's the spiritual path, you know? So let the invitation be just to ask yourself with kindness and curiosity, in what ways am I, maybe neglecting my life and my personal experience and the things that are in it as a, that I'm judging it as something that's not spiritual enough. And what am I grasping onto that feels like a kind of crutch? That, when I'm doing that, I'm a spiritual person. There was a really funny reel of a comedian that was talking about how he did yoga for a long time. He did yoga, and he was going to a yoga class, and he was going to a boxing class. And he said the boxing class was great, like just loads of different people, really nice, just going to get like some steam, out, like get their aggression, whatever it is, out, but really supportive, nice, friendly. And he said the yoga class was just so like uptight, and and because what he realized was it was, people in boxing were just there to get their energy out, right, and to support each other, like, help each other, whatever. There was a sense of collaboration. But in yoga, it felt like people were going there to be a better person, to be a better person, to be more spiritual, to be more enlightened. And he realized, oh no, you're not more enlightened, you're just a more bendy asshole. You're just a little bit more bendy. You're a bit more flexible, but you're still an asshole. And it just made me laugh because, yeah, we attach ourselves to these ideas, to these labels, to these paradigms, to these whatever it is, and actually the most spiritual thing is your own human experience. And can you be humble within it? I think we're coming into these times now more than ever of just like, you get to be you. You get to be you. Can that be enough? And your soul will always want to evolve. It will always want to grow. That is like, it's hardwired for that, you could say. Sounds a bit weird to use that terminology, but like it excites the soul to learn new things and experience new things and to expand and grow. And of course, from a soul perspective, from higher dimensions, it doesn't have the same relationship to like pain and struggle. It's all just like, wow, this is an amazing experience. I'm learning so much. The human is like, damn it, this is hard work. I'm not enjoying this. But when we look at it with that kind of neutrality of it's all grist for the mill, how am I expanding myself right now? And how can I view this as life is happening for me, not to me or against me? How is this helping me, supporting me? Rather than constantly being in this inner and outer battle, inner and outer conflict, inner and outer resistance. It's just an experience. This is all just some wacky simulation anyway, right? But it should be taken in with curiosity. And use what you have. Start with where you are. That's all you need. You don't need anything else. So those are some thoughts. Yeah. And be kind and gentle with yourself. I can sometimes be really hard on myself. And, I can be fiery and passionate, as I've shared before. And meet yourself there. Can you love that too? Can you love yourself when you lose your shit? Can you love yourself when you get frustrated or mad or angry or sad or depressed or lazy? Or can you love all of those things too? So there's the invitation. And as always, take it or leave it as feels right for you. And I just want to leave you with one last thought. Tune into yourself. I'm not saying I have the one right way or the one right truth. I'm just sharing from my experience. So that's why I say take what resonates, leave behind what doesn't. Take the time to contemplate what feels true for you. Let it be an invitation to contemplate more. We get really easily caught up. No, I disagree with you. No, that's not right. We're missing the point then. Okay, if you disagree with me, great, fine. What is it encouraging you to look into more within yourself? What does it open up within you or within your life as a conversation to better get to know yourself and others? Right? If we just focus on everything that's wrong or that we don't like or that we don't agree with, we're wasting a lot of time and energy, life force energy and opportunity, honestly, to continue to expand and grow and evolve and come back to love every time. Come back to love. So there you go. Loving you from afar. Bye. You've been listening to Raw Conversations with Corinne Bloom. Thanks so much for showing up, listening in, and being a part of the conversation with me.